Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we will learn about HTTP status codes. So whenever you make a request to the application, which is deployed on a server, let's say you are using Postman or curl to make a request to the server, immediately server responds back to your request, and within that request you can see some status code such as 200, 404, 500, 502. Have you ever wondered what are these status codes? Let me tell you, these status codes are called as HTTP status codes, and they have a very high significance in troubleshooting as well as understanding the state of your application. In today's video, we will learn what are these HTTP status codes, what are some popular HTTP status codes that you should definitely know, and along with that, we will also learn how to analyze these HTTP status codes and fix them using a practical demonstration. So make sure you watch this video till the end, especially if you are a DevOps engineer or site reliability engineer. In this video, I will talk about 11 HTTP status codes, which you should definitely know. Okay, so let's start with understanding what are these HTTP status codes. I will try to explain in layman terminology. When you try to access an application, it can be Instagram, YouTube, or it can be LinkedIn. What you do is you open your laptop, go to your favorite browser, and within the browser, you provide the URL. In this case, your browser is called as the client. So client forwards the request to the application that is deployed on the server. So basically, your request is received by the server, and server forwards your request to the relevant service of the application. And then your application process the request. For example, you want to upload a post onto linkedin.com. So this service of the application process your request and sends the response back to the server. And now the server responds back. So it gives a response back to the client. And when it gives the response back to the client, within this response, server has something called as status code. These status codes, like I told you, are called HTTP status codes, such as 200, 404, 500, 502. These status codes tells the client, if a developer is using the client or DevOps engineer is using the client, looking at these HTTP status codes, the DevOps engineer or developer can understand if the request is successful, failure. If the request is failure, what can be the possible reason for the failure? So HTTP status codes can help you with quick understanding of the possible root cause of the issue. And depending upon that, the developers or DevOps engineers can further troubleshoot the issue, looking at the logs, looking at the source code, looking at the threads. That's additional debugging, but the initial troubleshooting can be done using these HTTP status codes. Now you might ask me, but Abhishek, how many different types of HTTP status codes exist? If you go to the GitHub repository and click on the README file, link will be in the description. You can see that there are more than 50 HTTP status codes. Do you need to learn all of them? I would say no. You should know 11 popular HTTP status codes that I have here, because these are the most common ones that you would see as part of the software engineering. So these 11 status codes are split into 4 families. This is important to understand. 2xx family, 3xx family, 4xx family, and 5xx family. Where 2xx family means your request is success. What is 2xx? That means 200, 201, 204, everything in the 200 range. If you receive 3xx, that means your request is success, but there is a redirection. Don't worry, I will explain all of them in detail. 4xx means your request is a failure and there is some issue with the client itself. That means the request that you have made itself has some issue. 5xx means there is some issue at the server end. That means there is some issue with your application or the server. Now, we will focus on each family and we will try to understand what are common HTTP status codes in each family. Let's start with 2xx. The first one in this family that you need to know is 200. Overall, remember that 2xx means your request is successful. But within 2xx, there is 200, 201, 204, which are very common. 200 means your request is success. Okay. There is no question about it. 201, you can understand it as special kind of 200, which are used by some applications or some servers, where 201 means created. Success and something is created. I will give you an example. Let's say you are trying to upload a picture onto Instagram through the Instagram API. So your request is successful. Your picture is posted onto Instagram. In that case, Instagram has created some resource for you. And in that cases, Instagram can return 201 HTTP status code. Another example. Let's say you are creating a issue on GitHub, or you are creating a branch on GitHub, or a user on GitHub through the API call. Now, again, when you are creating, what has happened? GitHub has created a resource for you. In such case, GitHub can return 201 HTTP status code. So typically 201 is used whenever you are making post HTTP request. So there are 4 different types of HTTP requests: get, put, post, and delete. When you are using post type of HTTP request, when you are posting some information, in such cases, some applications return 201, which is special case of 200. Why I'm saying special case of 200? Because there are still some applications today on the internet which do not use 200 even for the case of post requests. Even when the resources are created, they still use 200, which is not a problem. Then there is 204 again, which is a special case of 200, but this is used when there is no content for the server to return back to the client. Abhishek, what does that mean? As I told you, 201 is used for the post request, or 201 is returned for the post request. 204 is status code that is usually written for the delete request. Let's say you made a API call to GitHub to delete a user on GitHub, and GitHub has successfully deleted your request. In such case, GitHub can return 200 or 204. GitHub returns 204. Some applications even today use 200. So both 201 and 204 are special cases of 200, where 201 is used in case of post HTTP requests and 201 is used in case of delete HTTP requests. Can we use 200 for everything? Let's say I'm an application developer and I'm writing an API. If the get request, put request, post request, delete request, anything is successful, can I return 200? Yes. But if I want to handle with extra care, if I want to give my users additional information, then I can go with 201 for post request and 204 for delete requests. Okay. Now let's understand 3xx family. So 3xx is quite interesting because 3xx also means success, but there is a redirection that is involved. I mean, it does not have to be success, but 301 means there is a redirection that is involved. What does that mean? I'll explain in very simple way. YouTube is the best example. Let's say you create a YouTube channel and you put your YouTube channel name as Abhishek.Veeramalla. So today my YouTube channel name is youtube.com/Abhishek.Veeramalla. And I shared this URL with everyone. I posted on LinkedIn, I posted on Twitter saying that I started a YouTube channel and this is my YouTube channel handle name. After 20 days, for some reason, I felt Abhishek.Veeramalla is too big and I changed my YouTube handle name to youtube.com/Abhi. Now, what YouTube does is it will automatically create a redirection. That means if somebody access youtube.com/Abhishek.Veeramalla, which does not exist, right? I changed my YouTube channel from Abhishek.Veeramalla to Abhi. Still, if someone goes to my Twitter, clicks on this Abhishek.Veeramalla, or goes to LinkedIn and clicks on this Abhishek.Veeramalla, YouTube will automatically create a redirect where the request is forwarded from the old URL to the new URL. In such cases, what YouTube does is YouTube in the HTTP status code either returns 301 or 302. That means your request can be successful, but YouTube wants to let you know that there is a redirection. In future, for now, I have processed your request. I will process this request for 1 year. I will keep this redirect for 1 year. But after 1 year, I might delete my records. So I am returning 301 so that you, that is the client, maybe developer or DevOps engineer, whoever is accessing this YouTube channel, they will know that a redirection has happened. Abhishek.Veeramalla URL is moved to /Abhi. In future, I need to make my request to this new URL. So whenever there is such redirection, you would see the 3xx HTTP status codes from the server. So I used my laptop, and on the laptop, I went to the browser and I accessed youtube.com/Abhishek.Veeramalla. This is the client, and the request is sent to YouTube. YouTube forwards the request from Abhishek.Veeramalla to Abhi because a redirection has happened. And when it sends the response back, it sends 301 or 302. Now you might ask, but Abhishek, what is this 301? What is this 302? What is the difference? Simple difference. 301 means permanently moved. That is, Abhishek Virmala is permanently moved to /Abhi. Abhishek has decided that URL will be this. In some cases, there will be some maintenance activities where some websites they temporarily change the website URL. In such cases, you will receive 302, that is temporarily moved. So in future, you don't have to change your request. You can still go with the old URL itself. Temporarily, we are doing some maintenance activity, right? So why 301, 302 are sent back instead of 200? So here your request is successful. The server can send you 200 back, or the application can send you 200 back. But instead of sending 200, intentionally the application sends 301 or 302 so that in future they want you to remember that URL is changed, move to a new one, or it is temporarily changed, don't move to a new one. Okay, 3xx is also fine. We will also do a demo of 3xx. Now 4xx. 4xx means there is some issue. So this is a red flag status code. In 4xx, there is 401, 403, 404, and also 400. You need to know about all these four HTTP status codes. Let's go one by one. What is 400? 400 means bad request. That means, let's say as a DevOps engineer, I went to the GitHub documentation. Okay. In the GitHub documentation, there is a clear documentation which is saying to create a user, you need to access api.github.com. It has to be a post request. Okay, go to your REST or go to your Postman or go to the curl and do api.github.com/user/username, or in the JSON data, mention what is the name of the user that you want to create. Now, I did not read the documentation properly, and instead of name, I have given NAM, or instead of name, I have provided username. Okay, in the JSON data, instead of name, I have provided username. So in this case, as soon as GitHub receives your request, it will say, okay, you have sent a bad request to me. Okay, that means you are trying to create a user, but I asked you to provide in the JSON a keyword called name, but you have provided the keyword called username. So this is a bad request. So you did not read the documentation properly. Go back, read the documentation properly. So there GitHub returns you 400 HTTP status code. That means your request itself has some issue. Then 401. 401 means unauthorized. But ideally, 401 should actually mean unauthenticated. So this is a issue with the HTTP status code name itself. It is called as unauthorized, but ideally it means unauthenticated. Let's say you have your college website, and within your college website, not everybody can access your college website, right? If I try to access your college website, I should be denied access. I am making an API call. My API call should be denied, or the server should say, no, you should have authentication. Everybody who tries to come to the college website cannot see the content of the college. So in such cases where unauthenticated users tries to make a request, they should see 401 HTTP status code. Now, whenever I say they should see, who is the one that writes this HTTP status codes? The developer of the application. So if I am developing my college website, I need to make sure that only authenticated users should be able to access my college website. If someone unauthenticated comes, the response that I have to give back to the client should be 401. So in the application code, I have to write this. Now there is another called 403, which is called as forbidden. This is actually unauthorized. So there is issue with the HTTP status code names itself. That is actually wrong, to be honest. 401 is called as unauthorized, but ideally it should be called as unauthenticated. 403 is called as forbidden, and it can also be called as unauthorized, but it is not called so. What is 403? 403 means, same example. Let's take the college website example. So student login should have access to some pages. Lecturer login or your training and placement cell in charge login should have access to few pages. If I log in as student and if I try to access the placement related files or the pages, I should get 403 forbidden as the response back from the server. So if I go to my laptop and if I go to the college website, I logged in as a student, but I try to access the pages that are related to the training and placement cell. The application or the server should give me the response back as 403, that is forbidden. So the difference between 401 and 403 is that 401 means you don't have authentication itself, whereas 403 means you have authentication, but the problem is that you are authenticated only to few things, but you are trying to access something else where you are not authorized. Next example is you can go to a bank, but you cannot go to the bank employee's laptop and try to take the files by yourself. You have authentication to enter the bank, but you are not authorized to go to the bank safe room. Similarly, 403 means, okay, you have access to the college website, but you cannot access the files of the training placement cell. In such cases, 403 has to be written. Permission issue, basically. Finally, 404. 404 is a simple, most common error, which means not found. My YouTube channel name is youtube.com/Abhishek.Veeramalla. If somebody is not sure about my spelling, and if they go to the browser, search for youtube.com and they write the typo in my name, they say Abhishake, then this is 404 not found. So the server should say the resource that you are trying to find does not exist. That's it. It's a very simple error. So server will receive your request, but it will say 404 not found because youtube.com as an application exists, but Abhishake does not exist. So it will give 404 not found. Looking at that, you should understand, I mean, the client should understand, okay, it's a not found error. That means there might be a typo in what I'm trying to look at, or the URL might be wrong. I should change the URL. That's it. Now the final family, 5xx. What does 5xx mean? In 5xx, we will talk about 500, 502. These are the most common ones. 5xx means there is some issue with the server itself. There is some issue with the application. If you are a DevOps engineer, if you are a SRE engineer, and if you see 500 or 502, you should immediately send that to your developers and you should tell them that, hey, I'm seeing 500, I'm seeing 502. Please see if there is some issue with your application and try to fix it. But what exactly are they? 500 means internal server error. 502 means bad gateway. Abhishek, can you elaborate? Sure. So internal server error means it clearly says that there is some issue with your application. So you made the right request. For example, you are trying to access github.com. You are trying to just get some users for github.com for a particular repo. So you went to the documentation, you saw that api.github.com slash org name slash repo name slash user. So you are going to fetch the complete details of a user. The request that you made is very simple. A get HTTP request and everything that you have provided is correct. Still, some reason the maybe GitHub itself is not performing well today. There is some issue with the stability of GitHub, or there is some issue with the performance of GitHub. Maybe the GitHub application is taking too long to process your request, or the code itself is not working. The new build has some issues. In such cases, you will see internal server error. It clearly explains there is some internal issue with your server. That is the application that is deployed in the server or your server configuration file. If you are using Nginx or Apache, there is some issue with that. So make sure you look into the issue and fix the issue. Typical things are like timeout, or there is some performance issue, scalability issue with your application, these kind of things. Or like I told you, the new build itself has some issues where the code itself is not working, these kind of things. Now the bad gateway. Bad gateway is like, try to understand it carefully. I also have a demo for this, but still try to understand the bad gateway. Sometimes some people find it confusing. I'll try to make it very simple. Let's say we are in the world of microservice architecture where you try to access some service. Let's call it as front-end service. Front-end service access the back-end service, and finally back-end access the database. So through your client, can be the postman or through the curl, you send a request to the front end. So your request actually went to the front end. Now front end send the request to back end. This is also perfect. Back end also process your request, and back end send your request to the database. Now database is taking so much time. Let's say your request has to be returned in 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, your request will fail. Front end processed it very quickly. Back end also processed it very quickly. But when it comes to the database is taking 10 seconds. So the actual service that you are trying to access is working fine. The next service is also working fine. But there is some issue with DB. In such cases, you will get 50T. That is, the developers of this backend application, they will handle with the status code 502, which is to tell the client, which is to tell the browser or the DevOps engineer or the developer to tell them that, hey, there is no issue from my side, but I am dependent on another service, and that service is not returning the response back to me on time. So don't worry about me, but worry about the service that I'm trying to access. There is some issue with it. It is not giving me the response back in time. So that's why we call it as bad gateway. This service is called as a proxy service. I took the example of front end, back end, and database for easy understanding, but there are some proxy servers as well, which just take your request and forward the request to another service. So these proxy applications usually return the 502 bad gateway, load balancers, or any front end proxies, back end proxies. They return 502, which means no issue from my side. I have sent the request to the next microservice, but it is not giving me response back on time. So go ahead and try to fix that. So such things are called as the bad gateway HTTP status codes. So these are the different types of HTTP status codes. We learned about 11 HTTP status codes. To start with, 200, 201, 204, 301, 302, 400, 401, 403, 404, 500, and 502. Abhishek, can I get a quick notes for this? Definitely. Go to this GitHub repository. The link is in the description. I have provided what is the meaning of HTTP status code, the common usage, and also example for each HTTP status code. Just spend 5 minutes for quick revision on this notes. Now we will do a quick demo. For demo, we will use this service. It's called HTTP bin. It's hosted on httpbin.org. This particular service is developed for understanding the HTTP service request and response itself. So it's a demo kind of an application, and we will use it to understand the responses of the HTTP requests. For that, we need a EC2 instance. We will quickly launch EC2 instance. Let me call it as demo. I will use Ubuntu, and I will select the free tier instance. I have a key value pair called HTTP status code demo, and I'll allow HTTPS launch instance. Okay, so I have just created a EC2 instance with my key value pair, and it's in the running state. Let me just refresh and check again. Okay, it's running, but the status check is still initializing. We will just wait for few seconds. Meanwhile, I will take my terminal, copy this, go to the instance, connect, go to the SSH client, and I'll just copy this command. Okay. Meanwhile, I'll bring up my terminal. So my PEM file is in the downloads folder. If your PEM file is in any other folder, so I'll show you. Grep PEM. So here I have the HTTP status code -demo PEM file with 600 permissions. I used chmod 600 HTTP status code, or you can also use chmod 400. Okay, make sure you go to the right folder where your PEM file is using the cd command, and then execute the SSH command. I just copied it from the EC2 instance itself. Okay, let me run this. Say yes. Perfect. So I have connected to my EC2 instance. Now what I'm going to do is I will go back to the GitHub repository and I have clearly provided the steps here. We will start with 502 itself, 502 HTTP status code. So I'll take this onto a different screen and I'll bring my terminal. Perfect. So now the first thing that we are going to do is verify if Python is installed, because I'm going to use a Python application. Okay, Python exists. All these steps are provided in the documentation. You don't have to worry. Then what I'll do, the next thing that I'll do is basically I will create a Python 3 virtual environment. Okay, it failed because it is saying you don't have the Python 3 virtual environment command with you. So first I'll do sudo apt update. Let me update the apt repositories. Once I update this, I can install the virtual environment command. And using that virtual environment command, I will create a virtual environment. It is a good practice, sudo, because multiple people might use this machine and you might have dependency issues with the version of your Python modules. So make sure you use virtual environment. Okay, did I forgot to create the virtual environment? Okay, and then let's try to get into the virtual environment. Perfect. I am inside the virtual environment. So now what I will do is I will install this demo application that I have, where I have written a simple Flask demo application. And to explain this application, so what I have is I am making request to this HTTP bin, the application that I showed you, with a delay of 10 seconds. Okay, I am saying process my request with a delay of 10 seconds. But in the request, where I am using the Python request module, in the request, I am saying timeout the request in 1 second. That is, if the server takes more than 1 second, make sure the request is failed. I want the response back in 1 second. That is what I'm saying in the request here. But intentionally, the URL that I'm trying to access is delay/10. That means that request is processed with a delay of 10 seconds. So I'm so basically I'm trying to simulate the 502 error. Intentionally, I'm creating the 502 error using this Python code. So let's go there. First, I need this GitHub repository. For that, go to the GitHub repository in the description. And I will try to use the git clone command. Does git exist? Yes. Git clone. Okay. Then let me go to this repo. Cool. And I will go to the 502 folder. And within this 502 folder, first I need to install the requirements. What are the requirements? Flask as well as the request module. So request module is basically like your Postman or curl, but in the Python. So I need pip3. Let me see if I have pip3. Okay. Pip3 install -r requirements.txt. Perfect. So the requirements.txt installed all the required modules for us. Now what I have to do is run this Python application, Python 3 bad gateway. Perfect. Now the application is running, but on port 5000. As you know, on AWS, by default, 5000 port will not be exposed. So I need to go to the security groups and enable 5000 port. Security, go to the security group, inbound rules, edit inbound rule, add a new rule. I can basically allow all traffic because this is a demo instance anywhere IPv4 and basically say save rules. Okay, now I will take my EC2 instance IP address, go to the browser, put the IP address colon 5000, okay, and slash proxy. Abhishek, why are you accessing the slash proxy? Because if you look at the code, okay, if I just terminate this once and quickly show you the code, vim bad gateway. So this is the file, right? Here I am using, oh my bad, I shouldn't use slash proxy. I should use just the slash. Good that I have seen this. So the app root is basically slash. So this is the decorator in Python where it is saying the application will be accessed on the slash context path. And port number is 5000, which is by default for Flask application. Okay, good that I have seen. So I will start the application one more time and I will access the application on 5000 slash. So it says unable to connect. Abhishek, where can I see the HTTP status code? One thing that you can do is go to function F12 and here in the developer console, you can see the 502 bad gateway. Now, Abhishek, I want to see it directly. What you can do is take another tab. Okay, take one more tab and run the same SSH command that you have run. So this is the SSH command, copy it and in your new terminal, keep this one alive. Okay, your Flask application should run on one terminal and on the new tab, just type curl localhost colon 5000 slash. So here you can see bad gateway. If you want verbose, just do -v and you can see the complete HTTP status code 502 bad gateway. Abhishek, can I fix it? Yes. So I will show you how to fix this as well. What you will do is go to the bad gateway Python application and just change the request time. As I told you in the request, I set the timeout as 1, right? So I will just change it to 100 seconds. The HTTP bin application will just process the request in 10 seconds. I have given 100 seconds. I said I will wait for 100 seconds. So I think now the bad gateway should go away. So let me try again. Perfect. See, I got the response back as connection failed. Okay, so you can clearly see the response is 200 OK. So I just made the change in the delay timeout, that is from 1 second delay to the 100 seconds delay. Now you might ask, but Abhishek, where exactly is this HTTP bin forwarding the request to another service that is internal to this application? Now maybe this is forwarding the request to another service or it is handling through some database. That we are not worried about. The thing that is important is we got 502 bad gateway and how did we fix it? By increasing the timeout. In real cases, in your organization, if you are working, either you can increase the timeout or the good thing that you can do is ask the developers to find out ideal timeout. Because today it failed for 10 seconds. Tomorrow it might fail for 20 seconds, 30 seconds. You cannot keep on increasing the timeout. Ask them to find out the ideal timeout and change that accordingly in your application. So this is how you can try out 502 bad gateway using this GitHub repository and also the steps to fix it. Similarly, I have provided for 302, 404, 200. In future, I will update all the 11 HTTP status codes. You can follow the steps. For example, go to 302. I have written the Python file, redirect.py. In the README file, I have provided the steps as well. So just follow those steps and try to execute all the 4 status codes. Do let me know in the comment section if you found the video useful. Thank you so much. See you all in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.